Hello, Internet, and thank you very much for tuning into Cloud Native FM or Cloud Native Podcast. This is your host of this show. My name is Saim Safdar, and today we're talking about platform engineering and some CTO's perspective with some of the guests I invited on this show as well. So, if you have been lately subscribed to this channel, so quite this month we covered a lot of the different panel talks around platform engineering, some KPIs to measure the platform and the platform team. And today's agenda is was what are the challenges the CTOs and the organization face when initiating the platform engineering initiative. And our conversation will resolve around what does platform engineering encompass? What compass do CTOs used for informed decision? And how do we build such a compass? And who are the stakeholders involved in building such a compass? And what are informed decision? For that question, I have a team with me today who can cover some customers and the community background into the table while answering this question. So I would like to invite Ashley Ward. Thank you very much for joining the show. This is your first episode appearing on this show. Ashley Ward, over to you. Bunch of your introduction first.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Yes, my name is Ashley Ward. I'm the CTO with Control Plane. Control Plane is a cloud-native consultancy. We specialize in securing some of the heaviest, most regulated organizations in the world and allowing them to consume next-generation technology safely.
Thank you. And Bryan, once again, thanks a lot. Your second appearance on the show. Bryan was invited in, I think, 2 months back on Developer Experience, one of the best episode people tell me. So over to you, Bryan. Now you have joined the new team, new company, and new initiative. Let us know about your newest introduction.
Thank you so much. So again, Bryan Ross, I am a field CTO now at GitLab. And it's a different badge, but very much my same role as before. So I'm out there talking to customers, people that are doing really big and interesting things. And it's all about trying to work out how they can get more value from software. So it's a little bit about technology, but it's a lot about people, a lot about productivity, and a lot about understanding just how we can get more out of what we're investing in.
Absolutely. So before we jump into the main subject, because I wanted to learn both of you, because you're both part of the organization as a role of CTO, and the platform engineering is a new big thing for a lot of the organization, and the CTOs sometimes find challenging merging people with the technology. So what do we actually make sure, what are the frameworks available that merge people with the technologies? But before, the Control Plane is my first guest on this show. So I wanted to learn more about few of the things Control Plane does today. And then because your guys are actually now a part of the Flux contribution space, and there are some big shift in the company and the community as well. So Ashley, can you give us a high level overview of some of the innovation happening in Control Plane these days?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing to shout out there is we've always done a lot of work with open source and allowing organizations to consume open source safely. One of our largest projects that's recently been very successful was allowing a major financial organization to see how they would ingest all open source into their production environments. And so we're always looking for solutions. And with what happened with Weaveworks, we realized that the Flux maintainers was in danger. I mean, the Flux as a project could have been in danger. We wanted to support that upstream project as much as possible, and so we took on some of the core maintainers. So Stefan, if he's wonderful. If anyone knows him from the Flux community, he's great. I had a catch up with him recently, and what we're doing there is trying to support the project and then say, okay, how can we help those same organizations we deal with use Flux? So providing a zero CVE environment for that, and making sure it's FIPS compliant and that type of thing. So supporting the upstream and then trying to find solutions for our customers. And that's something we do across the board for our traditional consultancy arm, where we'll threat model and do penetration testing and things like this with cloud native technologies, but also any solutions that we can see. So yeah, that's the exciting stuff that's been happening with Flux recently.
Yes, absolutely. And going back to Bryan, is, I think, remember last year, and I forget about the true timing of this post or announcement, but the GitLab adopted Flux as a GitOps based tool for all some of the stuff happening in the GitLab. I think that's in the last year they announced some of the investment, and now you have been a part of the same team, GitLab. So give us some background on particularly around the communities and what have you seen in the GitOps model paradigm and some of the stuff you have already been seen happening internally in the GitLab.
Yeah, sure. So I think GitLab's a really interesting company. It's one that I've been following for a number of years, largely part of just the amount of work they do in the community. So I was a user of the community edition of GitLab many, many years ago. And in fact, I may have copied several pages from the GitLab handbook when I became a manager many years ago as well. So for people that aren't aware, everything at GitLab, we make it as open source as we can, including our operations, how we organize teams, everything at all. Anything that we can open, we will. In fact, you'll see many of our internal meetings on YouTube, and it's all about having transparency. And that's really what the product's about too. So I'm sure most people know GitLab as being a code repository more than anything else, but is in fact capable of so much more. And that's where Flux fits into that story, as well as some other tools. So whether it's a developer working in an IDE, or whether they are doing testing, or they want to do security analysis of code, or they want to deploy, GitLab can be that single platform that helps all of those stages move smoothly. So, you can imagine all these different teams trying to work. If we're all in different tools, it just adds a lot of friction to that process. So I think the main thing I've seen at GitLab is it's been phenomenal being able to go and help customers simplify the large array of tools they have down into one kind of pane of glass, but more importantly, into one kind of unified data plane. So it means that we can track things like issues and epics. We can put that alongside our code changes. Our security people can see exactly what's happened in the code. Our developers can see the input the security tools have and what our security engineers think. So it's just all about that open and transparent collaboration for me. And I think the value that can come from that is massive. I think first and foremost, it's this concept that happy developers write better code. And I think that's what we're seeing with developer experience and platform engineering. There is now a realization that how we work as humans is much more important than the tools that we've got behind us. And, I'd be remiss to have a conversation about anything just now without mentioning AI. That's another huge part of development. And I'm sure Ashley's been doing things like that as well in control plane. But at GitLab, it's all about do at the moment and how we can help developers, security people, operations all work together with AI. But I think it's a really interesting story there. I think about how we do that safely and how we do that in a controlled way. It's not about replacing people. It's about just taking away some of the mundane parts of their job.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the GitLab has a big community and a lot of the user in a lot of the different places in the globe as well. So having a big part of the team is giving a really realization how communities and the customers and the vendors shape in the newest innovation in that spectrum as well. So every time I join new folks in the episode, I usually ask this one question to many folks just to understand how he feels about how they interact with the customers and the community. And Ashley, the first question is to you, is how do you define platform engineering and why is it important for modern businesses?
Well, that's a really good question. But for me, the platform engineering, so why would we want to have a platform at all? I mean, if we can just let our different DevOps teams run what they need to run, why do we need a platform? And ultimately, for me, the reason why we would have a platform is because those dastardly business outcomes. And so being able to say, I want to have people who are developing business benefit and the differentiators for the business, I don't want them dealing with the plumbing. So if I do need to run things myself, then I need to have a platform so that I can have the platform team worry about that and worry about the nuts and bolts and make sure that's the best developer experience it can be, and leave my developers to be doing those business benefits and those differentiators that we need. So in an ideal world, we don't need platform engineering. We can just let everyone do what they need to do. But in reality, we need to have our racehorses running fast, and that's not developing infrastructure and working with platforms.
Yes, absolutely. And the same question that Brian already talked about a lot, and I think that episode number 797 or 98, the Brian discusses a lot of these digital transformation or why the modern businesses need platform these days. So now recently, I share the link in the comment as well so people can look at it. I hope you guys also look at happen a chance to look at the platform engineering hype cycle that the Gartner people added. So Brian, what's your thought on this? Because currently, if I look at the community in the platform engineering, there are a bunch of vocabulary out there is somewhat confusing to the new beginners around what is internal platform, how developer platform are different from internet developer portals, what is developer experience, what are ephemeral environments. So you get the picture, like there are some confusing vocabulary. So in a newcomer, this might lead to some confusion. So are your overall thoughts on that platform engineering hype cycle?
So, look, it's no surprise in technology that we've managed to confuse ourselves with words alone, right? And I'm seeing lots of articles about whether DevOps is dead or whether this is going to be the new thing or what's going to come next. I think the important thing to realize is it's all about a continuum. We've been trying to get better at software delivery since time began, and I have no doubt that we'll continue to find new ways of working. As Ashley said, I think if we think back to the DevOps world where we had individual teams focused on producing value, that was really, really successful. But the problem was it didn't scale. By the time you had 100 teams working with 100 different tools in 100 different ways, normally not the way of the company policy and security policies, we had problems with, although it was locally optimized, it wasn't right for the business as a whole. And that's really where platform engineering comes in. It's about saying, well, how do we retain this idea of being value focused, but get the efficiencies of what we had before DevOps, which was like a separate operations team? And I think most of the customers I'm chatting with, I think there's a lot of confusion about the various terms out there. But I think the best thing anyone can do in this position would be to read the book Team Topologies, because I think that explains a lot about why we're trying to do this. And again, it's not about cloud native or digital transformation or new technologies, new tools. It's about helping people work together. It's about making their outputs as best they can be. As Ashley said, why would we have developers working on the plumbing of infrastructure when there's other things they could be focused on and when there's other people that might know that better?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think once again, I think there's a lot of the guest is previously invited on this channel. They phrase the same word. Now is the time we solve most of the technological problem, and we keep on solving them. And we have engineers that love solving those challenges, but we are actually not able to find, or actually not being so successful merging people with tech. There are still a lot needed to be done. We keep on moving in an innovative space with newest technologies, newest framework, newest ideas, but merging those with people has still haven't figured it out yet. So that's a great thing. Like the platform engineering is actually thinking around those angle as well. So actually, same question around. I want to learn from you as well around the platform engineering hype cycle, and with additional question being, how do you tackle issues in the cloud? And that's, I see a lot of organization has huge issues of the cloud spikes on AWS, on Azure, or GCP, especially with Kubernetes based infrastructure. And how do you tackle those cloud issues in the platform engineering? But the first question is your thoughts on the platform engineering hype cycle.
The hype cycles are always very good. All the different hype cycles that come out, and everyone has their own opinions about them. I look at that and go, that could say 2024, it could say 2023, it could say 2025, probably. A little bit jaded on that, but it's really important. I think what Brian said there is really relevant. Even there, when you say it and take on cloud spend and cloud spikes. Well, take it back a notch. I could walk into any business, and I'm sure that when I said, can you tell me what cloud is, I would get different answers from different people. So, I mean, Brian's point about kind of agreeing that nomenclature or agreeing your terms of reference, because that ties into then the hype cycle. If you look through the hype cycle and say, okay, well, this is what's in the trough of disillusionment, But that doesn't mean that it's remember, this is about hype. It's not necessarily that has no value. So when you see things in there and you go, okay, well, I should stay away from those ones. No, you should just realize that they were overhyped and they've now hit that trough and they'll soon plateau out. So I always say to everyone, to answer the first question, take a look at the hype cycle, try and understand that it is about the hype and not the technology. And then from there, you can learn by, each of those terms are going to be pretty broad. I mean, microservices is in there as coming out. I mean, that's a huge subject on its own. So for anyone wanting to learn, it's a really good place to start because you can get a feel for what's really being talked about, but don't let it jade you against the technology itself. And then from the second part of that question, remind me what you wanted to know.
Yes, absolutely. I think like if you once again alluded to, because a lot of the organization, even I work with a different organization in the past, even if you build some solution for your customers on the cloud, there is a challenge because you keep on adding infrastructure in the cloud and the expenses will always be exponentially grows. And for vendors' perspective or the end user perspective, since the arrival of the Kubernetes-based ecosystem, Kubernetes-based architectures and Kubernetes-based infrastructure, high cloud cost is becoming a big thing. A lot of startup like KubeCost or I think Cost AI has been building some solution around that. But I still see, even in the platform engineering space, this often comes a lot way. And I wanted to learn from you, like what have you seen from the customer's experience angle and from the community angle? If there are some solution exist today, and why we see in 2024 this is a big deal for the modern businesses, because we see like we are now smart enough people, we have containers that's come and goes, so that's meaning that the cost is not becoming so hyped, it's becoming shrinked, but the opposite happening in some places.
I mean, you see the whole gamut, the whole range there that happens, where people just look at cloud as a lift and shift opportunity, which isn't the right way to approach things because you are going to hit that cost. I think that more important than the cost element of that is if you are not managing your infrastructure appropriately so that you are seeing those costs spiral, then actually the bigger risk is having those orphaned resources that are sitting there that are going to be security holes, because if they're not being loved and maintained, then that's what's going to end up. There are a variety of different things. I'd be remiss not to point out that the cloud service providers, by and large, provide quite a lot of useful tooling themselves for you to be able to get that insight into what's happening. A big bit from when we talk in control plane, when we talk to people, is really trying to push this infrastructure as code and really having everything as if it's not in Git, then it shouldn't exist. So that way of saying that we know what's out there because we're managing things effectively, and that then means we avoid those costs. But also, from my point of view, it makes that infrastructure a lot more secure. So if somebody is seeing this as an issue, they're seeing their costs spike because they've got Kubernetes clusters going out of control, or they've got auto scaling all over the place, use the cloud service provider tooling. You'll get good insight there. If you've got multi-cloud and you're looking for something, there are bucket loads of vendors who want to talk to you, I'm sure. And then the final part on that would be, look at how you're managing that infrastructure, and if you're doing things in cloud, do it in a cloud appropriate way, which would be infrastructure as code and sticking everything in Git, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that during the DevOps era, there's a lot of conversation. If you automate most of the things in the software development cycle, it's not that you automate 50% of the things and 50% of the manual. So that's becomes bottleneck for different teams operating with the DevOps circle. And in the cloud, as you mentioned, I think the infrastructure as code, if you're doing the automation, doing it in a right way, doing in a configurability, maintainability, and reliability in a way that is most appropriate to the cloud resources. But we see a skills shortage in a lot of the different organizations around the cloud, and with the spike of Kubernetes, there's a skills shortage keeps on growing that as well. And also the same question for the Bryan, and Bryan is now the part of the GitLab. Now we see a ephemeral environment-based approach. We want to have every PR have been reviewed properly. And also we see that the WASM is actually taking some shines. Now we see Rancher Desktop having support for the WASM-based workload. So we kind of sees like there's a tradition, people have fear about the cloud and they have some nuances into it. But on the spectrum of the GitLab perspective, what have you seen recently with the intent being for ephemeral based environment and moving down the cost as lower to as possible?
So I think the nicest thing that's happening is that we are beginning a period of consolidation of our thoughts. And this kind of comes back to the hype cycle and what Ashley was talking about, how you go about architecting solutions. If you architect your solutions based on whatever is popular on the internet today and not thinking about what you're trying to achieve, you're going to have a bad time no matter what you do. So, it wasn't that long ago that everyone was going to public cloud, irrespective of type of workload. And as Ashley said, there was lift and shift of VMs and no change in the ways we work. And then there was a large push that we want to have sovereignty control over our data. So it was like everyone out the public cloud. And I think what we're slowly finding now is people are saying, well, actually, perhaps there's a middle ground. Perhaps what we should be doing is using the right tool for the job. And maybe the way we do things is more important than the what. And this is actually all about infrastructure as code. It's about making sure all your software is version controlled. It's about having a way that brings people together so they can collaborate on that. Because the one thing that is common is that our technology stacks have reached a level of complexity that it's not possible for one person to have all of that knowledge in their head and be brilliant at it all. So we are going to have to find ways of working together. And at GitLab and with our customers that I speak to, that is the key thing that people are after. They want to find simplicity in what they're doing. They want to enable productivity as a result of that. And they want to understand more about how they go from having an idea into code running in production. And that might be Kubernetes, that might be bare metal, that could be WebAssembly, that could be anything. And I think that's the key thing. How we go about doing things is the part where I'm seeing more businesses focus. Again, whether Kubernetes is the right architecture for your application is an open-ended, it depends. And it's my favorite answer. It's like, well, you're using Kubernetes. Great. Why? Okay, you're not using Kubernetes. Great. Why? And that fits for microservices. It fits for bare metal. It fits for pretty much any technology. They all come with pros and cons. And it's about measuring that for your business. And I think if as organizations out there, we need to spend a little bit more time asking ourselves the why question. What is it we want to achieve? Well, we might want to move faster. Great. Does that mean we want to deploy every day, every hour, because we're aware of some other popular companies that are saying that they're successful and that's what they do? Or is it we just want the ability to do a deployment in the next hour if we have to? And for most of my customers, that's actually what I'm thinking. They don't want to deploy every hour, but if they have a change that they need to roll out, be that for security or for features or something else, they want to have that agility. And I think in this financial market we find ourselves in, we're past that era of free money, and we're now at a point where people are trying to consolidate and work out how they can do things faster and more efficiently, therefore cheaper. And I think that's really important that we ask ourselves why, that we build things that make sense for our business and not copying what we found in this latest article.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the phrases once again echoing from your conversation is like you said, like we achieve a level of complexity that no one person in the organization can understand all of the stuff happening on the VASM, on the cloud native, on the platform engineering stuff. And there are individuals living in different part of the different teams. So then the next question from Ashley, because this question is, I wanted to, because you're part of the CTO as in the control plane. So I want to learn from you, what role communication play in ensuring all stakeholders are on the same page, whether we're doing platform engineering or in the Kubernetes-based ecosystem, what role communication does play. So specifically, if one person doesn't know all of stuff and that information is scattered on the different people's mind.
I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head there, because if you think about it, if you're to say, what is the application that we're deploying, however we're deploying it? And if that's and I've got a background in financial services, and perhaps that would be something that allows people to check on their pensions, or it's something that's going to allow, what's the business purpose of it? And then have a think about that person or the team that we're looking after that. They don't care what the logging tool is on the platform. And they don't care, and they won't understand, because that's not what they need to understand. And then think about each of the layers all the way through, from the application and the business purpose that it represents and it's trying to achieve, all the way through the different teams who are developing, and then into the actual platform itself. And then even, I started off my life as a Unix admin, and even the difference between what a Unix admin thinks and what a DBA thinks, the database administrator, it's a world of difference. And those are two people who are at quite a low level in the infrastructure, who will not want to know things. And then far less the person who looks after storage, because nobody knows what those guys think. That's a whole different world entirely. But now, then go back up the layers, and now we've got people who are looking at QA. We've now got people who are concerned with how they make sure that the data is in sync for, it's a huge amount of people, or it can be. And each of those people have different areas of the stack that they care about. So finding a way to communicate across, up and down those different stacks, and across all those different areas of specialism is really crucial. And as soon as you start throwing things in there where you say, great, and now we also have a CISO over here who's particularly concerned about the security. Now, depending on the organization and depending on the level, that CISO might be more concerned with, insert your crown jewels here, whatever your business does. So really tying on to Bryan's point, which is key. What's the purpose of what we're doing? Why are we doing this? What's the benefit? What are we doing this for from a business point of view? That will allow us as IT people to at least speak to the business and try and have an understanding about what they care about. And that way we can communicate more effectively when we have something that is impactful to them. It's not just a case of, the grommet doesn't work, or, and the details are, it could be anything. This doesn't work, and that's crucial. Why? Well, it's actually a security risk. And why do I care about that risk? I could mitigate that. If you think about it from a business point of view, can I just mitigate that through insurance? Is it a risk that I care about? So being able to identify why we're doing something, as Bryan said, who are the stakeholders that are involved, and then trying to think about things from the other person's perspective. So communication is key and is vital, but it's very easy just to say, yeah, communication is very important. I'd like to think, understanding how someone will be able to absorb that information and have it useful, that's the bit about communication that's key there. All the different stakeholders have different views. All of them care about different things. How do you get your message across to them, and how do you understand their message in return?
Yes, absolutely. And I think now we have a segregated, some people we live in a multi-cloud era, where a different part of the application reside in the different places, and different people have different expertise, and they're living in the different geography, and we're working remotely. So as you mentioned, it's very effective how you grasp that information and how you actually tell the information back, so it can be easily understandable. So I see a lot. I think a lot of the organization still faces some communication barriers today, even in the past. And that's the topic about how to merge technology and the people, and that communication become a very big piece in there if you want to accomplish that era. But now as we move our conversation to a bit more, because you guys have some security is a big thing for a lot of the customers living in the different organization. So Bryan, first your thoughts. We haven't debated much on this spectrum around security benefit in platform engineering. So how you seen it? What have you seen it? And do you seen is can be easily conveyable to the customers who are your platform users?
So I think first and foremost, one of the goals, one of the whys of platform engineering that Ashley mentioned is that what we're trying to do is provide a standard way of doing things that encapsulates our best practice or policies across the organization. And I think security scanning has to be part of that. Importantly, though, this does come back to communication at the end of the day, because what we don't want to happen is we spend a lot of time developing code, we test all of its functionality, we're really happy with it, we're due to go live tomorrow. All the marketing for that new feature has been ready to go. And then we security test it by the security team at the last minute, and we find a major flaw. And then what do? 9 times out of 10, that piece of software will go live, and there'll be a risk register, and it'll be someone's job to make sure we fix that later. Unfortunately, a lot of the value is already being delivered at that point, right? So finding time to then fix that security problem becomes problematic. Also, fixing a bug in a live production system with users actively using it is really expensive, really risky, really hard. What we'd much rather do is have security testing available on day one to developers. So from the moment they write their first line of code, they have access to security scanning tools that automatically tell them where there's vulnerabilities. We can have tools like GitLab Duo with AI explaining those vulnerabilities in a language that developers understand. And I think that's been part of the communication barrier we've had in the past. Well, this code isn't secure. Well, what's the real problem here? AI can help explain that in terms of development, in terms of saying, well, the way this would be exploited would be through A, B, and C. And a lot of time when I work with security teams or network teams or developers, they have their own language, they have their own ways of explaining things. And I think that's where things like AI can really help. But fundamentally, we want to try and fix those problems as early as we can when they are small, when they are cheap fix, and when we have much more control over its deployment. And if we can get everyone again to this one platform, it means that the security people can be looking over the code from day one. It's not a case of passing it to them. They can be involved in that process. And because all the code is available in the source control, then anyone can look at it in the company. Or it might be that the security scan results, if there's anything over a certain threshold, well, actually, a different team want to have a look. And if they need help, then they can drop into a comment system and get it right there and then. And I think this idea of working together to build software is the key. And ultimately, that's what the fundamental part of platform engineering is about. It's about taking the communication benefits that we got from bringing dev and ops together and then bringing that into a way that gives us a more efficient way of doing things. So a platform team is building a product that developers can consume, that helps them do their work, that they can entrust in, that fundamentally enables the business to work together.
Yes, absolutely. And going back to Ashley on the same topic, but if you look at the if you look at the ecosystem, if you look at the software development life cycle today, I am as a developer have access to a universal package system as container or the Docker file. Now I can write my ports into it. I can write my configuration settings into it. I can write if my application run on that system, how it got exposed, which storage backend it can access to it in a universal file. So going back to the early eras, there are things scattered in different places. Now we have a one universal communication pattern for the different teams to work with them. So as Bryan said, it's having a production user using your application, fixing bug there. It's damn hard. I can understand it because I live in some part of the era in the past as well. I can totally understand what Bryan is saying. So, but now we have a universal package system. So some people, folks call it now shift left your security. Now, as you write application, you have to think about security from the day one as well. But from the Ashley's point of view, what have you seen? Because you have guys working on the Flux as an open source tool, maintaining it, and then you're working with the customers who are using some of your tools to solving their business problem. Yeah, have you seen some patterns or best practices around security quite recently?
Yeah, so I mean that's actually one of the patterns that we use for Flux when we're creating our enterprise version is that we have automated scans that take place. I want the minimum is daily, but I think it's actually more frequently than that. That's looking for any vulnerabilities or any issues with the upstream, with the other components that are there, so that when we provide that supported zero CVE image for our customers, that we've already done that work. So what I would say is that people can and should be looking at how they can automate that as early on in the process as possible. A crucial thing to remember when we talk about shift left is that yes, it's the way to approach security, because then you're finding those and discovering them early on rather than trying to put something into production. But ultimately, of course, production is where everything is running. So, when we talk to different people in different teams about just developing software, and everyone has those slight different views, now try and think about that from a security point of view. So if you have a large organization with the security operations center that's sitting there with these lovely dashboards that tell them that everything's green or everything's on fire, remember that's across the board. If you're working in a very large organization, you've got everything from every single end user device, you've got every single website that's going to be there, you've got every single application, whether things are on premises, on a mainframe, whether things are all the way through to running as a microservice. So you've got security people who need to be focused on they're translating risk and understanding risk to the business. Now try and see from their point of view, when they're saying, you can't do that in production, well, how does the developer doesn't necessarily know what the risk is. They don't know what the quantifiability of it is. What's the danger here? They just see additional work being put on them to try and achieve something that seems almost pedantic sometimes. So having that communication there is key. And as Bryan says, having people introduced to the software development lifecycle who aren't necessarily developers, so that they can be involved and learn. One of the things that used to always say was, and in fact, Stu Hurst is someone who talks about this. He's a trust pilot, but a security person should go and hug a developer, go and find out what's going on in their life, and equally the other way around. So, I mean, if you're in an organization, reach out to security, understand what the risks are how they're translating those risks, because they don't know everything about the whole software development lifecycle. No, as we said before, it's now such a big deal. It'd be impossible for one person to know all these different things. So the communication is crucial, and understanding that people have different concerns about different parts. Security, ultimately, whether we like it or not, is a crucial part of anything we're doing, and oftentimes is one of the big benefits of coming from a platform engineering approach, because a lot of those, I mean, I mentioned plumbing before. I mean, some of that security plumbing can be done for us. We can then have those automated checks to say, yes, you want to open this up to the internet, but you shouldn't, or you need to have an exception written, or we need to understand, or it needs to be, we can do all of that earlier. So we're still, what did we say at the beginning? We're still enabling those developers, we're still giving them the best experience, and we're trying to do it in a way where we're saying, yes, we don't want you to do that, here's why, and give them the opportunity to say back, well, it's essential for these reasons. So we can communicate and we can get the right business answer.
Yes, absolutely. I think everybody listening to you in this chat, but we totally agree with you as well. And as Bryan, I think, mentioned during the conversation, that one of the aspects of the platform engineering is security, because if you look at the modern software development, I have APIs that I can actually hit using Postman. And then I have an IDE, VS Code, where I'm developing my application. Then I push my container images into the Docker Hub or any registry where I have access to. And then I pull or push the images from there. And then I have cluster in the cloud. So there are some scattered places for me. And for me as a developer, I don't have a mind. I don't have time to actually tune all these things, like how accessing those kind of stuff. So with the platform engineering, you have a centralized visibility of all your services, all the stuff you're consuming into it. So setting organizational wide policies is very easy, or is a heaven for a lot of the security team. You have one platform where all the policies embedded, and the stuff you needed to feature development for the business can be very easy for them as well. But I hope there are more conversation happening on the platform engineering spectrum as well, because I work in a lot of the restricted environment in the past where I don't have access to the internet while I'm developing my code. And I do believe there are still developers who have. So remember, you don't have access to internet. So it's a very different working site. It's a very different working environment. Sometimes you have to memorize the code. And Then you can add AI onto the spectrum. Then you need another security layer because AI can't access the internet. So it's a very different background. So I think I should believe that platform engineering have encompasses some sort of security benefit for a lot of the organization as well. So before I let you go, I really enjoy the different part of the conversation around communication skills, around merging people with tech, with the security angle, and some of the CTOs angle as well. But I do call it because you live working your full-time job as 24 by 7 is a CTO. And Bryan, first up with you. So how can CTO align, let's say, the platform engineering initiative with broader business goals? Do you have some suggestion or tips on that?
Yeah, so I think it's probably a summary of what we've said so far. First and foremost, I think it's the role of the CTO to work out why we're going to do what we're planning to do. Without doubt, that's the biggest benefit. Whether you're choosing technology or whether you're choosing how you're going to develop, you need to understand what it is, what are the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. And that's not always it's about delivering a feature, that's about whether it's speed, etc. So understanding the why first and foremost. I think secondly is remembering that you might get it wrong. So trying to involve as many people as you can along the way in that decision-making process and not pretending that just because you've got 3 letters in your job title means that you know everything. The honest answer is your job is there to mostly bring together people's ideas and put them into one thing that makes sense. So that's not just technical roles, that can be things like instant management, finance, CEO level kind of strategies, bringing them all together and distilling them into a plan. Then working with people to deliver the plan and noticing if it's not going the way that you thought it was going to go, being brave enough to change. I think the worst initiatives that I've seen are ones where a large promise has been made for, say, a 3-year, X billion pound project, and it's going to be delivered no matter what. And that's where it usually goes wrong because we don't know how we're going to do a 3-year project, let alone 3 months in many organizations I've found. So have your large plan, understand what you want to achieve, and if it's not working, change direction. Be brave enough to change direction and follow the people to help them to achieve. And again, bringing people into the story is really important. They need to be part of the change that you want to happen. So they need to understand what's going on, why it needs to happen, why, and it may not be within their value system as well. So again, think about security. We need to explain why that's important to the business, not just a way of slowing things down. Likewise, for incident management, change management, financial controls, there has to be an understanding across the organizations about why we're doing what we're doing.
Yes, absolutely. That's totally agree. I 100% agree with whatever, Bryan, you have said. So the same question for you, Ashley, but the Bryan added like very one wonderful phrase on this during the conversation. You can't add 3 years project and have to deliver no matter what. And for in the platform engineering, we like to call it the thinnest viable platform. So, can you share some of the spectrum around you have challenge what you have faced, and some of your thoughts on the thinnest viable platform?
I think the agility in a platform is, or in any endeavor, is the big thing. So, Bryan calls it out there. So, I mean, a big chunk of my job is spending time with the CFO. It's spending time with the CEO. It's understanding where we want to go as a business over the next 3 years, 5 years, knowing all the time that markets change and things can happen. We saw that when we decided to help out with Flux and take on the maintainers. That was very much it wasn't part of a 3-year plan. It wasn't part of a 1-year plan. It was opportunistic, but it did tie into our plans and our company and our ethos and our values and how we're operating. So we've always been open source maintainers. We're always very keen to see solutions for our enterprise customers. And so it was a natural thing. Having that longer and wider vision is a core part of the CTO role. And it's being able to say, okay, why are we building this platform? As we've said, how does that enable me to still maintain my agility in the event that something changes? So it's not, we are going to do this, then 3 years time, it will be this, it will look like that, but instead going, okay, if something changes with my approach, have I then wasted all of this engineering effort? No. Good, then I can continue. And as things kind of move over the following 3 years, and as we see different things come in, Bryan mentioned the land of unlimited money has gone, and so we've seen different organizations react to that in different ways. And really, though, from a CTO's point of view, it's about trying to give that vision of this is where we're going, but accept that we may have to take slight detours on the way, and making sure that we're not baking ourselves into some solution that then isn't fit for purpose very straight afterwards. I know the minimum viable product, and I love these types of things. I heard recently the minimum livable product, which I really liked a little bit more. For me, a big part of anything that we're doing, especially from a platform point of view, is this sense of ownership or lovability of it. And that means, cradle to grave, and accepting that, this isn't viable anymore. There's a better solution that's here. Just because we've put time and effort into something doesn't mean that then, well, we have to keep that. We can instead say, or we should be in a position to say, yes, and it was the right thing at the time that we needed to do. We've gotten this business benefit out of it, and now's the time to shift to something else. And having that ability to say, yes, I know what the end result is in 3 years, or I know what the 5-year goal is, I know all these different things, but we're not tying ourselves in to say it's this that's set in stone. So again, the real answer is to sum up everything that we've talked about so far. But for me, it's building on Bryan's point, which is, as a CTO or as a senior leader in an organization, you are there to make sure that you're meeting the business needs today and for the future. And you've got the ability to say, you know what, we need to change, we need to pivot, we need to readdress how we're approaching things.
Yes, absolutely, 100% agree. And I think you phrased some wonderful conversation during the point. I really like the way this conversation has been folded into the difference angle. I hope everybody's seen have some question. Do let us know. But I hope most of the things we covered has been some big debates in the community. Everywhere I see in the LinkedIn or the platform engineering communities, or even in the Kubernetes community, these questions have came up quite lately. And I think if I understand it correctly or heard correctly, you talk about minimum lovable platform, and that I love about it. I heard from you. I think that's definitely should be the approach for the organization to look towards to. So that's the one new phrase I learned from you as well. I think I definitely want to add into the platform engineering vocabulary, because that's the mindset we need in this ecosystem as well. So before I let you go, both, you're part of the wonderful organization doing some extremely valuable stuff for your customers. So we are now, the half of the year has been gone by, I think, approximately. So Bryan, is for what next have you planned, or have you seen will happen or can happen for the GitLab community and the GitLab customers? So we can take an eye out on it. I know it's difficult to predict, but some of the things you have seen, like now we can move into the intersection based on the community feedback.
So as you say, everything always is moving, right? I think one of the benefits is, we talked about transparency earlier in communication. At GitLab, all of our roadmaps are available in the open. All of our backlog is available in the open. You can see how we work. You can see how we prioritize. You can watch our developers work together to fix problems or develop new features. So recently, we just released GitLab 17, our latest major version bump. Lots of new features in there, specifically around AI and how we can use that as a tool for developer productivity. I would say if I look towards the next 6 months, without doubt, we're going to see more AI. And I realize that people are already a little bit tired of hearing about AI. But I think the thing that I'm looking forward to is AI being much more of a feature rather than a product itself. So I think up to this point, we've had conversations about AI as a thing by itself, whereas at GitLab, what we're doing is trying to weave that into our existing functionality. And dare I say, you've kind of seen the same approach with Apple with their recent launches, where AI is now a feature that's woven into pre-existing parts of their ecosystem. GitLab is no different. It's not about having a kind of a Microsoft Clippy in the corner trying to be annoying as you write your code. It's about having a tool there to say, oh, you've written some code. Would you like me to generate some test cases for that? Or you've written some code, we found a vulnerability in your code. Here's the background of it. Would you like me to fix the code for you? Or here's a suggestion how you could fix it. Or as a tool for junior developers, how can I make the code that I have better? Or as a collaboration platform, as we said, we've already got features such as explain this vulnerability to me or explain this block of code. I think the key thing, though, is about finding these ways that we can make AI more useful by dropping it into context. So, I don't think we're quite at the point of generalistic models yet. So I think it's really important that we just see it as something that enhances a thing that we've already got. So yeah, I would say anyone that's interested in what we're doing, have a look at our roadmaps. I say they're all available in the open. You can see what we're working on. But yeah, there's some really nice things coming towards this year, and obviously in subsequent as well.
Yes, absolutely. I can reference those into the YouTube description as well, or in the comments, so people can actually go watch that. One of the things I like about GitLab is being open source. You can actually see what's coming up, what's coming in the roadmap, and what are the new features and capability comes up. But during the AI, I love your phrase, AI become a feature, not a product. I hope more companies will look into it. That's a problem. As I started my development, there are some patterns like dependency injection, where you can actually add dependencies in the parentheses of the function. So in that way, if the new dependency came out, you don't need to change inside the code, just the parenthesis has been changed. So for me, it's take time to learn. With AI, can suggest you write a code, now move into the dependency injection framework. With a junior developer, they can talk to their senior, like, AI suggested me this, and you can incorporate and start learning from it. And because this is a development paradigm where you start learning a lot, you don't have time to add these beautiful code into your pipeline. So with AI, you can do these kind of stuff. I think one thing I really shine about is AI that enhances your code, as you mentioned, write test cases for you. That's really important for a lot of the business. And some businesses say, oh, we don't have time for it. We know it's critical, but we need to fast. We don't have time for it. Now, the AI can do it for you. Now you have time to do it. So let's incorporate into it. That might make some advantages for you. So actually, same question for you. Control plane is now a big thing for a lot of people around the globe, especially with the Flux incubation and stuff happening in there. You guys wrote Flux Enterprise as well. And then the security is a big thing for you guys. I actually mentioned, I believe now there's an open wax document that the Flux distribution can use. So it's secured by default, security in itself. But I do want to learn from you. I know its prediction is very tough these days, the way the AI, platform engineering, and all the stuff happening. But what do you predict some new things happening in the control plane, and what the Flux community is heading towards to?
I think, as with all predictions, you get found out 6 months later when they're nonsense. But I think that we're supply chain is going to be, the software supply chain is going to continue being a big issue. And I think actually people will realize more, especially when we're trying to bring AI into our businesses, that actually that becomes a crucial part of it all. So whether that's the provenance of images that you're building from and you're then deploying applications, whether that's saying, okay, I'm wanting to use an in-house AI model because I'm going to be pushing it against my data. How can we provide attestation that in fact this is what that data was learned? How can we make sure that the data wasn't manipulated that then the model learned from? How do we know that the model itself was valid and that compared to the data? How do we make sure then that it's not been poisoned afterwards? And really having that as a software supply chain, although this is us talking about AI and how to safely consume that. That's certainly one of the big things that we're working on at the moment is we're looking at how financial services and large regulated financial institutions can safely bring AI in, and how they can make sure that actually the model that is built and the information that's there is valid, and we can show that all the way through from the beginning. So the prediction for next year, one of the things that we do with The work we've done with Flux ties in with this. The stuff that we want to do for enterprise for Flux ties in with this. It really is being able to streamline activities based on that software supply chain. So I think that there'll be a more attention turned to what makes up, what are the different components that make up whatever the solution is that we're deploying, whether it's AI, whether it's microservices, whether it's anything there, and being able to, as you say, easily consume and easily ingest and easily trace and track what it is that we're doing there.
Yes, absolutely. And I do call out because the stuff, as I mentioned, OpenVex has had been added into the Flux. So this can be prediction that the security in the Flux is a big thing. I think one of the things I really like about the Flux community, they take a look at the security tooling very seriously, and they start incorporating in it. Like on this basis of chain guard images or the base images become more minimal, more secure, not many vulnerabilities inside into it, and all the way. And I think they have some good collaboration with the policy as code tools like Kyverno to make security is a one platform for most of the things as well. So I think that's a great, and I do predict there are some more innovation happening in that spectrum as well. But I really like the, yes.
No, I just wanted to say that, from a Flux roadmap point of view, because I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression. Flux is an upstream project, that's a graduated CNCF project. It's got lots of maintainers. They've got their roadmap. As control plane, we're not trying to influence their project or their roadmap. We've got a maintainer that allows us to then build things in for our own roadmap for our enterprise. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The Flux team do a fantastic job, and I don't want to claim credit for what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. As I mentioned, there are some great, wonderful mind and engineers behind the Flux project for a very long time, and they did a wonderful job as well. And I hope to see more and more security firms and more organizations who are security heavy. They have nothing to go other than Flux, because this is a GitOps by default and security by enabling it as well. So big shout out to the big community in the Flux. And as you mentioned, the graduated project. So it's a great innovation happening in that space as well. So thank you very much for a wonderful communication and wonderful guidelines, best tips and practices. Bryan, as always, some great conversation. I learned a lot, and I hope this will be keep safe in my mind, and tell people like it's now a time as you mentioned, the land of unlimited money is go away. And now we don't say there's a 3-year project, we have to do it. We have to think holistically. Why is this doable? Why we need one? Which businesses can be beneficial for them? So these questions are more important than before. And then in the security angle, platform engineering, first rule, we have to give security us by default. And then AI become a feature, not a platform or the product. So some great collaboration. I hope to meet you again sometime in the near future. But do check out Control Plane and GitLab, because these are the companies that are doing some incredible work in most of the areas. And I appreciate all the work they have been doing. And keep looking for the Flux and the community doing for some of the news feature as well. First appearance of Ashley on the episode, and it's dupe. It's extra dupe. It's wonderful, and I enjoy every minute of it as well. And as well, Bryan, thank you very much for your accepting my invites, and keep talking to me and keep educating me around platform engineering and all the stuff happening. So with that, we're top of the hour. Hope you both enjoy the conversation as well. And we look forward to seeing more comments and suggestions in the chat as well. Looking forward to speaking with you in the future as well. So keep looking up is the best strategy to get into this business as well. Have a wonderful day everyone.